The warm sunlight streamed through the glass windows of TechVision's headquarters, casting long shadows across the polished floor of the 34th floor. Maria Delgado stood in front of the mirror in the building's pristine bathroom, adjusting her crisp navy blazer one last time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, rehearsing the technical presentation she had prepared for the 5th time that morning. "You can do this," she whispered to herself in English, carefully enunciating each word. The past 8 years had been a journey of relentless dedication, earning her master's degree in software engineering from the University of Columbia, teaching herself English through countless late nights, and finally making the brave decision to leave everything behind in Bogota for a chance at her dreams in Silicon Valley. The position at TechVision wasn't just another job interview. It was the interview. The company was known for its innovative cloud computing solutions, and landing a senior engineering role there would mean everything Maria had sacrificed was worth it. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Mija, your brilliance speaks louder than any accent ever could." Taking one final deep breath, Maria grabbed her portfolio and walked toward Conference Room C. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before her, each step bringing her closer to what she hoped would be the beginning of her American dream. The conference room was already occupied when she arrived. 5 people sat around a sleek oval table, their attention immediately turning to her as she entered. At the head of the table sat Sarah Bennett, TechVision's engineering team leader, known throughout the industry for her ruthless efficiency and innovative solutions. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her expression unreadable as she assessed Maria. "Good morning," Maria said confidently, despite the slight tremor in her voice. "I am Maria Delgado, and I'm here for the senior engineering position." Sarah's perfectly sculpted eyebrow arched slightly. "You're the candidate from?" She glanced down at her tablet. "Columbia?" "Yes, I graduated top of my class from the University of Columbia and have been working on several significant projects in cloud computing and—" "I see," Sarah interrupted, her tone carrying a hint of amusement that made Maria's stomach tighten. "Well, why don't you begin your technical presentation? I believe you prepared something about optimization algorithms?" Maria nodded, connecting her laptop to the projector. The familiar sight of her code samples and diagrams gave her courage. This was her element. She began explaining her innovative approach to reducing cloud computing costs through advanced optimization techniques. 10 minutes into her presentation, Sarah raised her hand, cutting Maria off mid-sentence. "I'm sorry, but could you repeat that last part? Your accent is making it quite difficult to follow." Heat crept up Maria's neck. "Of course. I was explaining how the algorithm reduces processing time by—" No, Sarah interrupted again, this time with a slight chuckle that sent ripples of uncomfortable laughter around the table. "Maybe try speaking more American? You know, like normal people do?" The room fell silent. Maria's hands began to shake, but she forced them steady. One of the junior engineers, a young man with kind eyes, looked down at his notepad, clearly embarrassed by his superior's behavior. "I can write it down if that would help," Maria offered, her voice smaller than before. Sarah leaned back in her chair, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "Oh honey, in this industry, communication is key. We can't have our senior engineers speaking in a way that confuses the team. What if there's an emergency? What if critical decisions need to be made quickly?" She turned to her colleagues. "Can any of you honestly say you understood even half of what she was saying?" The silence that followed was deafening. Maria stood there, her presentation frozen on the screen behind her, showing complex algorithms that could revolutionize the company's efficiency, algorithms that now seemed meaningless in the face of such blatant prejudice. "I have 7 years of experience," Maria said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "My English may not be perfect, but my code is. I have references from—" "References won't help if no one can understand you," Sarah cut in sharply. "Look, Ms. Delgado, TechVision is a fast-paced environment. We need people who can integrate seamlessly into our culture. Perhaps you should consider positions more suitable for your background." The words hit Maria like physical blows. She looked around the room, seeking any ally, any sign of support, but found only averted gazes and uncomfortable shuffling. The young engineer with kind eyes opened his mouth as if to speak, but a sharp glance from Sarah silenced him. With trembling fingers, Maria disconnected her laptop. The screen went black, taking with it the evidence of her expertise, her passion, her potential contribution to their company. She packed her belongings with as much dignity as she could muster, her mother's words now a distant whisper drowned out by Sarah's mocking tone replaying in her mind. "Thank you for your time," Maria managed to say, her accent thicker than usual as she fought back tears. She walked out of conference room C, past the gleaming windows that had seemed so full of promise just an hour ago. The elevator ride down was a blur, and it wasn't until she reached her car in the parking garage that the first tear fell. Sitting behind the wheel, Maria finally let out a sob that had been building since Sarah's first smirk. Years of study, of practice, of dreams, all dismissed not because of her capabilities, but because of the way she spoke. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother asking how the interview went, but she couldn't bring herself to respond yet. As she drove home through the busy Silicon Valley traffic, Maria's sadness slowly transformed into something else. The sting of humiliation began to fuel a fire within her, a determination that would soon change not just her life, but the lives of everyone in that conference room, especially Sarah Bennett's. Little did Sarah know, her cruel words that day would set in motion a chain of events that would come back to haunt her in ways she could never imagine. For now, though, Maria wiped her tears and began to plan. She had always known she would have to work twice as hard to prove herself in this industry. Now, she would work 10 times harder, not to prove herself to them, but to show them exactly what they had rejected. The sun was setting as Maria pulled into her apartment complex, casting long shadows much like those she had seen that morning. But this time, instead of representing hope, they marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, one that would leave Sarah Bennett speechless in more ways than one. 1 year had passed since that fateful morning at TechVision. The same Silicon Valley sun now streamed through different windows, the floor-to-ceiling glass walls of Translate Connect's headquarters. Signs in multiple languages adorned the modern office space, and the steady hum of conversations in various accents filled the air. In the center of it all stood Maria Delgado, no longer a job candidate, but the founder and CEO of the fastest-growing language learning and translation app in the tech industry. The Series B funding round closed at $50 million, announced James Chen, Maria's CFO, as they walked through the bustling office. "And Google's AI division wants to partner with us on the neural network implementation." Maria smiled, remembering the long nights of coding that had led to this moment. After the TechVision interview, she had channeled her humiliation into innovation. Translate Connect wasn't just another translation app, it was a revolutionary platform that used AI to help non-native English speakers perfect their professional communication while preserving their authentic voices. "The acquisition offers are pouring in," James continued, scrolling through his tablet. "But there's one that stands out. They're offering $400 million, and they're willing to let us operate independently." Maria stopped in her tracks. "Mindtech? The parent company of TechVision?" James nodded, oblivious to the significance. "Their VP of Acquisitions is coming in today for the preliminary meeting. Sarah something. Bennett, I think?" The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony. Maria felt her heart race, not from anxiety this time, but from anticipation. "What time?" 2 o'clock. Conference room A. Maria spent the next few hours reviewing the acquisition documents, but her mind kept drifting to that humiliating morning a year ago. Her company had grown beyond her wildest dreams. Translate Connect had over 50 million users worldwide, and their enterprise solution was being adopted by major corporations across the globe. The app didn't just translate, it helped people find their voice. At precisely 1:55 p.m., Maria stood in front of a different mirror, in a different bathroom. This time, her navy blazer was designer, her posture confident, and her hands steady. She wasn't practicing her English, she was preparing to change the power dynamic forever. The conference room doors opened to reveal Sarah Bennett, looking exactly as Maria remembered. The severe bun, the perfectly pressed suit, the air of superiority. But this time, Sarah wasn't sitting at the head of the table, she was waiting to be received. "Ms. Bennett," Maria's assistant greeted warmly. "Welcome to Translate Connect. Our CEO will be joining shortly." Sarah nodded, setting up her presentation materials. "I have to say, I'm impressed with what your founder has built. The neural network adaptation for accent recognition is genius. Whoever they are, they clearly understand the challenges non-native speakers face." Maria watched through the glass walls as Sarah organized her papers, completely unaware of who she was about to meet. The irony was almost too perfect. "The market potential is enormous," Sarah continued, speaking to James. "Our analysis shows that Translate Connect could revolutionize corporate communication. The founder must be quite remarkable." "Oh, she is," James replied with a knowing smile. Maria chose that moment to make her entrance. The glass door swung open silently as she stepped into the room, radiating quiet confidence. Sarah turned, her professional smile freezing in place as recognition slowly dawned in her eyes. "Good afternoon, Miss Bennett," Maria said clearly, her accent present but proud. "It's been a while since our last meeting at TechVision. I believe you had some concerns about my communication skills?" The color drained from Sarah's face. The papers in her hands trembled slightly as she struggled to maintain her composure. "Ms. Delgado, I had no idea." "Please, sit." Maria gestured to a chair, not at the head of the table, but to the side. "I believe you have a presentation prepared about why MindTech would be a good fit for my company." The next hour was a study in professional karma. Sarah stumbled through her presentation, her usually confident voice shaking as she outlined the benefits of the acquisition. Every time she mentioned effective communication or seamless integration, she winced slightly, the memory of her past cruelty hanging heavy in the air. Maria listened attentively, asking pointed questions about corporate culture and diversity initiatives. Each query was a subtle reminder of that interview day, but delivered with the poise of someone who had transformed rejection into triumph. As Sarah concluded her presentation, Maria leaned forward. "Your offer is interesting, Ms. Bennett. But I should mention that we're not just considering acquisition offers." Sarah's brow furrowed in confusion. "You see," Maria continued, her voice steady and clear, "Translate Connect has been quite successful in raising capital. So successful, in fact, that we've been looking into acquisitions ourselves. And as it happens, we're particularly interested in companies that could benefit from our expertise in inclusive communication." The implication hung in the air for a moment before Sarah's eyes widened with understanding. James slid a document across the table, not an acquisition agreement for Translate Connect, but a proposal for Translate Connect to acquire TechVision's entire software division. "But that would mean—" Sarah's voice trailed off as she stared at the papers before her. "Yes, Miss Bennett," Maria replied, allowing herself a small smile. "We're not here to sell Translate Connect to MindTech. We're here to discuss Translate Connect's acquisition of TechVision's software division. Which means, if all goes well, your entire department would be reporting to me." The silence that followed was profound. Through the glass walls, life at Translate Connect continued, a vibrant tapestry of languages, accents, and cultures working in harmony. The world Sarah had tried to shut Maria out of had become the world Maria now owned. "I'll need your answer by the end of the week," Maria said, standing up. "I trust you can find your way out? I have another meeting with Google's AI division. In case you were wondering, they don't seem to have any trouble understanding my accent." As Sarah gathered her things, visibly shaken, she had no way of knowing that this meeting was just the beginning. Maria's plans for TechVision's software division would bring even more shocking changes to Sarah's world, changes that would force her to confront her prejudices in ways she never expected. The real revelation was still to come. The next morning, Translate Connect's boardroom buzzed with tension as lawyers finalized the acquisition paperwork. Sarah sat rigidly in her chair, watching as her division's fate was sealed with each signature. Maria's presence at the head of the table served as a constant reminder of how drastically the tables had turned. And with that, the corporate lawyer announced, TechVision's software division is officially part of Translate Connect. Maria stood, commanding the room's attention. "Thank you all for being here. Ms. Bennett, could you stay behind? We need to discuss your new role." The room cleared quickly, leaving Sarah alone with the woman she had once humiliated. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words. "Are you going to fire me?" Sarah finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maria's response was measured. "No, Sarah. That would be too easy. Instead, I'm appointing you as the head of international development." Sarah's relief was short-lived as Maria continued. "You'll be leading our new global team. Your department will consist of engineers from 12 different countries. Most of them are brilliant minds I've personally recruited, people rejected by companies like TechVision because of their accents or communication issues." The color drained from Sarah's face as understanding dawned. "Do you mean?" "Yes. You'll be reporting directly to them. Each team leader speaks English as a second language. They're all exceptional engineers whose careers were hindered by prejudice. You'll learn to understand their accents, adapt to their communication styles, and most importantly, value their brilliance over their pronunciation." Maria pulled up a presentation on the screen. "Meet your new team leads, Dr. Ahmed from Egypt, specializing in machine learning. Ms. Patel from India, our database architecture expert. Mr. Chin from China, leading our AI initiatives. Dr. Rodriguez from Mexico, heading cybersecurity." Sarah stared at the faces on the screen, each representing a lesson she needed to learn. "Your first team meeting is in 15 minutes, Maria announced. "They're waiting in conference room C, the same room where you mocked my accent a year ago." Sarah's hands trembled as she gathered her notes. Before she could leave, Maria added, "One more thing. All your performance reviews will be conducted in their native languages, with translations provided by Translate Connect, of course. Consider it a feature test for our app." The next few weeks were a profound awakening for Sarah. Every day brought new challenges to her preconceptions. Dr. Ahmed's brilliant machine learning solutions were delivered in heavily accented English, forcing her to learn to listen differently. Ms. Patel's revolutionary database architecture came with Indian English pronunciations that Sarah had once dismissed as unclear. But the real transformation came during a critical project deadline. Sarah watched in awe as her international team collaborated seamlessly, their different accents and backgrounds creating a symphony of innovation rather than the chaos she had once feared. They solved problems faster, brought diverse perspectives, and created solutions she never would have imagined. One evening, as Sarah struggled to communicate with Mr. Chun about an urgent system issue, she finally understood the full weight of her past behavior. The frustration on his face as he repeated himself mirrored what Maria must have felt that day. But instead of mockery, Mr. Chun showed patience, finding different ways to explain until they reached understanding. 3 months into her new role, Sarah requested a meeting with Maria. "I need to apologize," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "Not just for that interview day, but for every time I let my prejudice blind me to someone's true value. I was wrong and I'm deeply sorry." Maria studied her for a moment. "Your actions speak louder than your words, Sarah. I've seen how you've changed. Your team respects you now, not because you're their superior, but because you've learned to respect them." "They're brilliant," Sarah admitted. "All of them. I was so arrogant to think that perfect English was a measure of intelligence or capability." Maria smiled. "The true measure of success isn't in how well we speak, but in how well we listen and learn from each other. Your journey proves that." As Sarah left Maria's office that evening, she passed by conference room C. Inside, a young engineer was giving a presentation, her hands shaking slightly as she spoke with a thick accent. But this time, instead of mockery, she found her colleagues listening intently, focusing on her ideas rather than her pronunciation. Sarah quietly slipped into the room and took a seat, ready to listen, really listen, to what this brilliant mind had to share. The wheel of karma had turned full circle, but instead of crushing her, it had transformed her. And somewhere in her office, Maria smiled, knowing that her victory wasn't just in acquiring a company or becoming someone's boss. It was in changing minds and opening hearts, one accent at a time. The story of the immigrant who was shamed for her English had become a legend in Silicon Valley, but not for the reasons anyone expected. It wasn't just about revenge or karma, it was about transformation, about turning prejudice into understanding, and most importantly, about proving that brilliance speaks in many accents. Sarah Bennett would never again judge someone by their accent. And in Conference Room C, where it all began, a new generation of tech leaders was learning that the most important language in innovation isn't English, it's respect.